Okay, as people are trickling in, I think I'll just start. It's 12:03. We've got Jonathan for the next 27 minutes. Hi everyone out there. I'm Ryan. I'd like to welcome you to I call it the semi-formal view of AI and machine learning. Kara, I don't know if you want to go to the bio slide. Yeah, that's me. I don't think I really need to introduce myself. I do some of the organizing for our Masters of Financial Innovation and Technology Master's Program. I host events like this, and one of the honors that I have is to talk to people that are at I'd say, past the cutting edge of application of machine learning and AI in capital markets. And it's my honor today to present or to introduce Jonathan Hunter, who is the head of all markets and all things markets at RBC. And I'll just go for a little bit through your bio and how you got to where you are. You started, I would say, and when I say this, I don't mean it pejoratively, but at the bottom of the trading room, right, in the dealer training programs, where I started as a dealer trainer in 2005 at HSBC, and my first job was to get coffee and get the right coffee for the right people at the right time. At lunchtime, my job was to man the desk and make sure that when everyone else was getting lunch, that we could have at least a skeleton crew of trading. You've sort of hit all of the high points in terms of global international markets and finance. Been to London, New York. You came back to the mothership. You're extremely active in not only your own organization, but in ISDA. And you've done a lot of things outside of business and RBC and ISDA. You're part of the diversity and mentorship at RBC, organize Women in Capital Markets organization as the 2018 champion of change. And you're also a member of our lowly advisory board at the Masters of Financial Innovation of Technology. And you're also, I'm glad to say, sometimes we have people, because we're pretty open, we have people that aren't graduates of Queen's, but you're also a 1991 graduate of Queen's University, which is probably the highest accolade you can get. And yeah, welcome. I'm glad to have you.
That's great. Thanks. Thanks very much, Ryan. I was going to say that I started not on a lowly position. I started on a high position, graduating from Queen's in 1991, and actually my son just finished literally yesterday his second year in the commerce program. So still strong connections to Smith.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, like I said, sometimes we have people that graduate from, heaven forbid, Western or Rotman, but we've got our own students. So today we're going to talk a little bit about machine learning, artificial intelligence, so AI. I mean, of course, we mix up these terms quite often. Probably what we're really doing is applying sort of advanced algorithms to capital markets problems, and these could be things like regressions, it could be nonlinear regressions, it could be huge big data applications, it could be really advanced machine learning or just really simple statistical learning. But RBC has been in the news positively, certainly recently, with the release of AIDEN, with their use of advanced analytics and machine learning. Do you want to tell us a little bit about sort of how you guys apply these things, how you view these problems, what some of the issues are? And I mean, I'll get to the point, I'll get to it at the end, but what students really need to know about using these technologies when they're entering or re-entering the workforce.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you for that. And I think you hit on a lot of key points. I would reiterate some of the comments that you made, Ryan. So, I mean, terminology and nomenclature is so important, right? I mean, I'm going to use interchangeably a broad digital concept or word. We actually have a division within global markets called digital solutions. And that encompasses data science, AI, many different forms of learning processes, data, and a lot of our issues, frankly, as a bank revolve around data, as you can well imagine. And then also just sort of rules-based algorithms, but also machine learn-based algorithms. And so the permutations and combinations are incredibly broad. And I'll stick with the term digital for the purposes of encompassing all. I would say that you are absolutely right. We have demonstrated pockets of real innovation and excellence as it relates to AI and some of our digital work. And what I've recently done is really leaned into this because it is now a business imperative, and that is created a horizontal business unit within global markets. So that's supporting all of our asset classes: fixed income, rates, credit, FX, commodities, futures, equities, the whole gambit. And it's saying, rather than having these pockets of excellence where we are generating great technological solutions to solve our problems, we're now going to apply that across a very broad swath of asset classes. The hope being, you can build it once and use it many times. You can drive more scale. I think also you can drive more innovation, because in a big organization like RBC with 80,000 people, you can well imagine I might have 4 different teams all working on exactly the same sort of logic or business problem, and those 4 teams will never meet. And so our hope by creating a home or a place of best fit is to drive that innovation, to drive that scale, and really to advance the effort. I would say I see hundreds of clients a month. There's not a client meeting that I don't go to for the last 2 years where technology, automation, algos, ETFs, you name it, which all embed are part of the ecosystem, if you will, don't figure prominently in that review. What are you doing to stream prices live? How is your algo differentiated? I can get the same thing from 7 other banks. What are you doing? And so it is now an absolute table stakes or business imperative. And someone had asked, or Kara had asked me earlier, she said, is this an arms race? Of course it's an arms race. And that's exactly, unfortunately, that's what we're in right now. But what I would say in terms of what people need to think about, to answering specifically your question, is we are solving business problems with AI. And so you can't think about AI as the end goal, that it is the enabler. And that's how we are solving our business problems. And so the best and brightest minds, the differentiation proposition for me as someone who's running a big business, is someone who can connect and work with the business to understand what those problems and challenges and opportunities are, and then at the same time can work with the developers and the quants and are able to bridge that gap and use AI to solve that problem in a scalable, iterative, and very commercial manner. And that skill set, they call it the bridging of the expertise and the business practical elements of things, is, I think, one of the things that some of the resources that I'm really looking for right now. And that's why, frankly, I was so interested in getting involved in this program and the master's program in general.
Yeah, I remember earlier conversations that you and I had about finding and identifying students that know finance and technology, right? It wasn't, we've got a lot of people that are really good in finance and are really, I shouldn't say a lot, but some that are really good in technology, but finding people that know which technologies you can apply to which business problems and how, and I think that's the key. And I was going to get into your sort of this new internal group, the Digital Solutions and Client Insights. But since you already talked about it, I thought I'd bring it up. One of the things that I, not only when speaking with you, but with others, is that one of the biggest issues surrounding technology isn't that we don't know what we want to do with it. It's not that we don't have the data, and it's not that we don't have the business problems. It's that we have capacity constraints in terms of the people that can implement this stuff, right? And so, as you mentioned, if you got 4 different teams all recreating the wheel on the same problem, you're exacerbating your capacity constraints. And so by creating a cross-setting or a cross-cutting organization that can do it in, across similarly applied problems or business problems and use this technology, you're solving, you're solving your capacity problems. I have a question. This is a question I get, and I think we can get a little bit more into the applications of the technology. But one question I always get is, well, what is going to be, what is now, and what in the future is going to be the role for people, for wetware, as we say, in the financial technology or in the market space? What can people focus on, and what are they going to do and continue to do in the future?
So it's the simplest way I explain at a high level the answer to that question is, when I started in the business, our 98% of our value proposition, or 90% of our, was execution, and 10% was idea. And so what I mean by that is the clients evolved their own ideas. They knew what they wanted to do, that they had something to do with their balance sheet. They needed to do it. An asset manager needed to make a decision on alpha creation or allocating between different asset classes. And our value proposition was execution. And so it was heavily people involved. That has, in the 30 years I've been in the business, those two places have switched. And so 90% of our value creation, or wetware, or what will people do, is engaging in the solutions with the customers and the clients. And then frankly, our value proposition is 10% execution, because you can get execution anywhere you want. You can go, there's so many mechanisms. There's non-bank players, there's bank players, and there's so many mechanisms. And so our value creation has to be in solving problems for our clients. And you will have heard the term, clients or banks pivoting towards solutions orientation as opposed to execution orientation. I do not need people who can get on a phone and take a bond order from a client or take a stock order. I have plenty of technology that will support that. What I do not have is people who can converse with a customer, understand what they're trying to achieve, look at the available tools in our toolkit in terms of what we can put in creating value or helping those clients, and let's talk about that, and then we can worry about the execution later. That's a trend that's going on. I'll give you a great example: crypto.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to know about crypto right now. And it's not how do we trade crypto. That's easy. I mean, ETFs and exchanges and the CME and Bitcoin futures and all of that.
Yeah.
It's all of the softer stuff, or the background stuff. It's around compliance and the framework. And do you want to custody these assets? And how do you custody these assets? And how do you stress test market environment in an asset that can go up or down 250% in a day? And these are dialogues and conversations, and the execution and the technology, that's a fast follower to the solutions that we're solving for problems. So that's kind of how I look at it. And I don't know if that explains, if that answers your question as directly as you wanted, but.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, I like your it's not really an analogy, but your observation that we've gone from 90-10 to 10-90, right? That execution used to be extremely important. And I mean, I remember from my days, and I use it as one of my examples in trading, that we used to pick up the phone all the time. That was 90% of our job, was just answering the phone when someone called, and then typing it into Front Arena or Interactive Broker, whatever kind of interface we were using. And now what you're saying, and I haven't been on the trading floor that much in the last couple of years, but certainly it's generating the ideas or figuring out what it is that is the best solution for a customer. And this is, I didn't know what your answer was going to be, but I think this is consistent with things that I tell people. A lot of people are concerned that there isn't going to be a role for humans in capital market. We're talking so much about machine learning and AI, and I keep telling, no, we're probably going to need just as many. I'm not saying more, or maybe a couple fewer, but it's not like we're going to replace all of the humans with machines, right? They're really good at rote tasks and things that you can codify and repeat. They're not really good with coming up with innovative solutions or tailoring advice to individual clients, and that's where sort of the people, the next generation has to understand execution and technology, but also has to understand the business side of what's going on.
And I get that question pretty much everywhere I go. Okay, I get the exact same question, and I can tell you unequivocally, it's not going to do away with the need for people. It's just we have to change. We have to iterate with how the marketplace. And equally, I would say you have to have an understanding of the logic behind the technology that supports the execution. You know, you can't just say, oh, I'm going to do this. You need to understand it. So you have that. I always tell, you know, particularly undergraduate students, you know, get some coding experience as part of your education, because you're going to use that regardless of whether or not you're going to become a quant on the rates desk or understanding, complex equity derivatives formulas. You're still going to use that context in terms of however you want to evolve your business model. I would also say that it's consistent with what we're seeing from people. We know that people don't want to be what I call one-trick ponies. They want access to the broad asset classes to solve their problems. We're in a low rate and right now a low vol environment. And, you know, depending on which central bank you speak to, we're probably there for 2 or 3 years. And so if we're there, it means that alpha creation is going to be difficult. It's going to be hard. And so alpha creation will probably come from looking at asset classes differently, bringing them together. And that sort of breadth of knowledge around the entirety of the capital markets platform, rather than just the fixed income side or just the equity side or just a particular part, that's not really where people want to focus their attention. They want a more broad perspective and learning environment. So I think this solutions orientation will facilitate that environment.
Yeah, you've seen I'd say a progression to people. You know, the common discussion would be about equities, but now you hear them about digital assets. We talked about some of those, but also just options. Even the typical retail trader, not the large institutions, they were always sort of involved in options, but now retail traders are starting to, I would say, stumbling towards understanding how options markets actually work. So yes, it's, you know, it's not just a single asset class. It's, you know, how can I put together an entire solution? I have a question that's sort of changing gears a little bit. I would sort of like to know how the process came about for the idea behind Aiden. So how did you sit down and think about, oh, we need to see how AI can be used in basically an execution in multiple markets, and, you know, just how that came to fruition?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I would actually go before Aiden. So if any of you read Flash Boys, which is a good book and is a fun read, and it's an easy weekend read. There was a business called Thor. There was an application called Thor, and if you remember what Flash Boys and Thor was all about, this was back in sort of the turn of the 2000s, when it was all about speed of execution and who can get to the exchange faster, and fiber optic channels. And there was movies about, I can't remember what the movie was, that they were talking about how they were putting a fiber optic channel through farm fields in New Jersey so they could get an extra, milla, whatever second in terms of their access points and jump the queue. And we stopped on that and we said, well, wait a second. What happens if you slow down the order flow, which is really what Thor was about? And you sort of you play around what was going on in the high frequency hedge fund space, and you pull back from that. And we say, and that's where, you know, Thor came out, which was, everyone else was talking about how do you be faster, how do you be cheaper, how do you do this? And we actually said, stop for a second. We actually think we can build a logic here, which is we're going to slow the order flow down. And we think actually that's going to enable better or truer reflection of VWAP or whatever your execution metrics are. So, and it goes back to my earlier point, which is, how do you solve problems? Use technology to support your clients. The clients were getting upended on price. They were getting beaten to the punch. They would go put an order in to buy a stock and it would move. And so we were like, well, wait a second, let's slow back down. And that's what Thor came from. Aiden was just an iteration of that, which is, okay, so TWAP, pre-trade analytics, post-trade analytics, understanding price construction, understanding access to the marketplace. How does an order flow hit the market? How does it impact the price? Aiden became sort of an educational tool to say, how do we take Thor and make it even more adaptive and learning as it goes? And that's really where Aiden came from. And it goes back and it kind of harkens to one of the key points that I wanted to make, which is we are here in support of our clients. And you've seen a lot of examples where technology has been used to compete with the clients, and this whole notion of black box versus glass box. And I hope that's a term that people are familiar with, but we are going down this journey in a glass box version, which is, and the regulators over time are going to demand it. The clients are going to demand it. The marketplace is going to demand it. If you can't open up your logic to allow people to see what's going on sort of under the covers or in the box, you're not going to get customers who are held to a fiduciary standard, who have a whole bunch of other requirements that they're solving for. And that sort of value proposition, or that client first, client advocate piece, is going to drive the backbone of our digital journey as we go. Just like Thor did in the initial stages, Aiden was an elevation of Thor, and we've got a program called Amos, which we do the same thing in FX. We've got another Smart Force algo embedded in our research offering, which basically is a data miner, and then produces outputs based on that. All of those are going to be glass box in nature, and they're going to be solving problems or issues that we bring for our clients. It was interestingly, we just had 2 weeks of roundtables with clients. So we probably had 15 to 25 clients on each one of these roundtables. At the table were business people, people from our digital solutions group, and they were sitting and they were talking about, okay, what are your challenges? What's going on? Well, this is what happens when I exit this market, or when I executed this market, or I do this, or what I really want to be able to do is bring all of these flows together and knit them together. So we get a list, a laundry list, to your point about how do you assess, of work that we need to work on and do. And we go back into a room and we say, okay, these are the 5 priorities of things that we think, A, are really important in terms of what we heard, and B, we've got the capabilities to scale a response. You're going to see that sort of iterative process take place over more. And so Aiden was an iteration on Thor, and the future of our digital landscape is going to be an iteration on Aiden.
Yeah. And for those that aren't in the know, if I remember correctly, Thor stands for time heteroscedastic order routing. If
you are smarter than me, because I knew that it stood for something, but I didn't know that's what it did. So there you go.
I think the only reason I know that is because I'm good friends with Stephen Bain. And so we had a long conversation about that in Flash Boys and how the algorithm worked. And I thought we solved the world's problems on a napkin. And I'd like to believe that that's Aiden now. So that was it. I think we've got 2 or 3 more minutes. I've got one good question. We've had multiple good questions, but one good question from the audience, and that was, it's about programming skills that are required of traders, sales, front office. And I'll skip the part about which language to learn. I always tell students, just have an openness to acquire any language, just understand how algorithms work and these things work. But the second part of the question is actually interesting. Why don't we just have one finance specialist and one programming guru, as they call them, and team those 2 up? Why is that a solution? Or why isn't that a solution to having these bridge personalities? I've got an answer. But
it's a great question. So I'd say, in effect, that's what we're trying to do with, as you say, the cross section between vertical, which will be your finance technician, and horizontal, which will be your data or your technologist. that makes the presumption, and in the world of business, as you know, Ryan, that people are going to be comfortable letting go of the steering wheel and letting someone else drive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so when you say to a business head, I want you to rely on this person to help build the ecosystem, which is going to enable you to do what you're doing, they feel very nervous because they want to be involved in that lockstep. And so in the initial stages, that's the problem when you have finance head and tech head or developer and cross sectioning. There's a real issue of human trust that needs to take place. From a developer's perspective, they need to truly understand what the motivators and what the problems are from a client perspective. And from the client or the product head perspective, they need to believe that this person is going to build something that's actually going to solve their problem, that they can rest. And that trust is a really strong human element that's important. That if I'm successful in the execution of this reorganization, I'm going to build that trust over time. I'm going to teach people how to let go of the steering wheel and let someone else drive, and celebrate the wins collaboratively. And that's one of the elements. And so that's a little bit why the problem of one and two, and why ultimately where you really want to go is you want to get someone who's got both of those skill sets. And I'll give you a real life example. So we've got a gentleman who used to be one of our equity quants who was involved in the development of Thor, and his name is Haider Ali. He didn't know, I mean, he did, but he didn't know what a bond was. He didn't know what duration was. He didn't know what the treasury market was. He didn't know what liquidity stacks were. He had no idea. And we asked him to build our algo for US treasuries because of his experience on Thor. And he went away, and 6 months later came back, and we were really happy with what he is. Today, he runs our treasury business globally.
Mm-hmm.
So this is someone who's come from a place, and that transition only happened over 3 years. And so what I'm saying is, when you can couple the two skill sets together, you can create some really powerful outcomes. And our algo in US Treasuries is number 8 in the world in terms of market share. And we will trade huge blocks of securities through that algo. No human hands will touch it. We will hedge, million or 2 million a basis point risk points in nanoseconds, all done through what the work that Haider and his team built. But that's sort of, if I can do that 25 times over, then that's a real win.
Mm-hmm.
But your point is a good one, but the human element of trust is crucial in how that horizontal and vertical intersect.
Yeah, I would have said something very similar. I would have just replaced the word trust with sort of communication, or an ability to communicate. I always use the example of there's a nuclear power plant that was being built in the border between French and Germany, and the Germans forced all of the technical documentation on their side to be in German, and of course the French are just as, let's just say, obstinate, and they wanted to have, and they tried to put it together, and it just didn't fit. And no one was willing to speak the other's language. So even though they were all nuclear physicists speaking the same nuclear physicist language, they weren't willing to speak each other's language, and it ultimately didn't work, and the project failed. This was in the 60s or in the 70s. And you got a lot of similar things, right? If I'm talking about derivatives, I'm talking about liquidity stacks, and someone's talking about memory allocations, vectors, those people, getting them to understand that, a vector could be an order book, or so how does the finance translate into the algorithm, into the computer algorithm? Yes, it can work, but you need to have that layer between, and either you get your Haider that comes out of understanding both and becomes a unicorn, or you just really have a lot of friction, and in all markets, frictions are generally not great. So yeah, I think trust or communication is.
Yeah, and look, my hope is that a Haider in 5 years' time won't be a unicorn, and there'll be lots of other examples of that, and we've seen that transpire. But that's the biggest one of the biggest opportunities and challenges that we're contending with in terms of these topics.
Great. We promised to have you out of here at 12:30. We're 3 minutes late. So the German in me is disappointed in myself. Not that I'm German, but my wife is. So it's been great having you, Jonathan. I look forward to another chat and maybe meeting in person sometime soon when we're allowed to travel again. And with that, if you've got a parting thought, you can hand it off now. And thank you again. I'm sure the students loved having you join.
Yeah, listen, no, thanks for that. I'm very excited. And look, we are going into uncharted territory. And so the most exciting part about this is the bold nature that Ryan and team have come in terms of intersecting these in this program. And I think there are a lot of things, frankly, we just don't know the answers to some of the questions, and they're great questions. And this is going to create a forum and an intersection between academics and business, which is going to enable us to help solve some of those problems. So I'm excited about it. It's a key component of our business strategy on a go forward basis. And I think it'll present itself an opportunity to ask lots of really good questions and hopefully get some great solutions over the years to come.
Great. I appreciate it, Jonathan. And with that, we'll let you go back to your normal trading day.
Enjoy your day, all. Take care.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Bye, Jonathan, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Ryan. I'm just going to share my screen.
Okay, I'll hand it off to you, Kara. Thanks to everyone, and I'll leave you in Kara's more than capable hands.
Thanks, Ryan.
Bye.
Okay, so yes, I'm unmuted. There we go. So thanks everyone for joining. I hope you enjoyed that. That was a special 30-minute presentation from Jonathan Hunter from our advisory board and with program director Ryan Reardon. And now I want to spend the remaining time we have together to go over the program details, because I know a lot of you here today are, curious about the admissions process, the curriculum, the timing for the program. So without further ado, I will get into really the nitty-gritty of the program. And so, and sorry, I should mention, we'll leave time at the end for questions. So I will keep my eyes on the chat, and I will get to your questions before the end of the session. I wanted to start by sharing that Smith School of Business at Queen's University has been around for over 100 years, establishing the first undergraduate business degree in Canada. On the left, you'll see is a picture of Goods Hall, which is home to Smith in Kingston, Ontario. And on the right is Smith Toronto, which is situated in Toronto, Ontario. And that's where this MFIT program is based out of, in Toronto. We will have time during the program to visit Goods Hall in Kingston through one of our residential sessions. And I'll just quickly introduce myself. So I'm Kara McCreary. I'm the Assistant Director of the Master of Financial Innovation and Technology program. I work really closely with Ryan, who you just heard speak, on all facets of the program. And I'm the main point of contact for you as a student when you're in the program. I'm also joined by Jennifer Mayer. So she's on the line with me today, and she will introduce herself a little later on. And she's our application advisor for the MFIT program. So she'll be able to help advise applicants on candidacy for the admissions committee review and how to strengthen your application, and really here to help answer any questions you have and walk you through the process. And so I wanted to just get into the program here. So as I'm sure you know, that the MFIT program is the first of its kind. So we launched last November with our inaugural cohort in response to a gap in the market. And I'd like to kind of highlight that gap. Oops, sorry. I'd like to highlight that gap here with a testimonial from the CEO of McKinsey, who said, "I have lots of people who speak the language of business, and I have no problem finding software engineers who speak the language of technology, but I can't find translators who speak both languages." We kind of just heard Jonathan, speak about this in the earlier part of today's session. And so what Jonathan and others believe is that the MFIT program is really aimed at solving this gap. So there's a constant refrain from employers, similar to Jonathan, who require employees who are experts in both finance and data science and machine learning. As well, with the rapid advance of fintech, blockchain, automated investing, et cetera, the demand only continues to grow. So we're going to see more and more employers requiring talent with both of this skill set. So the Smith's MFIT program is aimed at solving this skills gap. I'm going to share as well a couple of testimonials. So these are also advisory board members from our MFIT program, similar to Jonathan. These both, I think, do a really good job of demonstrating how the MFIT program is aimed at solving the skills gap. So the first is from Jennifer Reynolds, and she's the president and CEO of the Toronto Finance International. She says, the pace of technological change in the financial services industry has never been greater. As a result, the need for talent that can help accelerate innovation is critical to the success of every organization. The Smith MFIT program is designed to build the pipeline of skilled talent to fill these jobs, which will drive the success of the sector and its critical contribution to the Canadian economy. And I have just one more to share with you. So this is from Mark Tepper, as I mentioned, also on our advisory board, and he is the Vice President of Global Derivatives and Risk Technology at Scotia. And he says, technology is the backbone of modern finance. There are many experts in either technology or finance, but it is very hard to find people with a background in both. The MFIT program is ideally suited to create the experts we need to lead our digital transformation. So as you're clearly starting to see, the program is built on technology and finance. And, one of our attendees had that great question today for Jonathan, why not just hire two people with those different skill sets? And I think he, shed light on why that's important to have someone to do both. And so I'll just take you quickly through the, we broke down the program in three foundations. So three pillars, if you will. So the first is the data science layer. And this is where we will teach you how to deal with data. So how to collect it, process it, analyze it, visualize it, understand it, and present it. The next layer is machine learning, where we will teach you to take the data and make decisions with it, show you how you can automate decision-making processes, how you can understand which factors or variables are driving decisions and outcomes that we see. And finally, the financial technology layer, which encompasses many things from delivering new financial services in a new way to paying for things in a new way, and really everything in between that is a financial process aimed at solving a problem with technology. So some of the questions that you can expect the MFIT program to answer for you would be on the data science layer. You might be able to answer questions like, where can we invest our money? Or how can we lend to someone profitably? In the financial analysis layer, you might be able to answer, you will be able to answer, what were the risks and where were the returns with that investing and or lending that we did? In the machine learning layer, you'll learn how to speed up or automate the process of figuring out where to invest or where to lend, understanding, of course, the risks and returns, and you'll be able to do this maybe better, cheaper, and or faster. And finally, FinTech is where we bring all the learnings together with automated and technology-supported decision-making. So like I had said earlier, you're really starting to see a theme here, which is that this program and really the demand in the market is for talent with both technology and finance skills. So in the program, you will learn new data science and machine learning tools and methodologies and how they work against loan pricing, derivative trading, hedging and pricing, risk management, asset management, valuation, prediction of macroeconomic trends, and many more. How the content is delivered in the curriculum is both theory, but with a practical application. So you'll learn how data science and machine learning tools and methodologies work, but how to apply them to practical application. So using real live data sets from some of our advisory board members and partner organizations. You'll learn financial theory and how to apply it to real world decision making. You'll also, in many of our courses, you'll be put in teams where you will, harness and work on your communication and team building skills, as well as power skills like strategy, innovation. We have a course on intrapreneurship as well as entrepreneurship. Of course, business acumen and obviously analytic capabilities is a big part. We have evaluations throughout the program that vary course by course, but you'll see things that you would traditionally see, such as exams sometimes, assignments, both team and individual are usually a component of almost every course, as well as presentations. So right now, of course, our students are presenting virtually, but that's something to be expected as well, that you'll get experience at actually speaking to audience and to your classmates. And I will now share with you the program curriculum. So I have here listed all of the courses in the MFIT program. These are also listed on our website, and on the website, there's an actual course description for each of them. So I won't spend too much time on here because I definitely want to make sure we leave some time for your questions. But we did categorize them into 3 separate buckets here that you'll see. So the first are our technical courses. So these are our MFIT courses unique to this program, where you'll actually be applying the programming and analytics knowledge that you've learned to actually solve and automate financial problems. In the middle are the analytics courses, and this is where as a student, you'll be actually taking these courses with an MMA classmate and cohort, so actually learning alongside that program. And in the final bucket on the right there, we have our financial courses. And this is where you will get those foundational financial courses that will serve you well in the program and in your career after. And likewise to the analytics courses, this is where you as a student will take them with a MFIN student. So that's a Master of Finance program, and you'll be taking them alongside those students. I'll also just mention a little call out at the bottom there, because I think it's a very exciting accolade, that the MMA program, so that's our Master of Management Analytics program, was awarded the 2020 UPS George D. Smith Prize, which is an award that recognizes excellence in preparing students to become practitioners of operations, research, and analytics. So we get to learn from some of the best in that program as well. This is just a smattering of the programming languages that you'll learn in the program. So we've included 5 up here, and some of these are covered in the core program curriculum. Some of them are touched on through additional workshops, and so really you can get kind of as much exposure as you'd like to, as all the programming languages that we touch on and offer. As Jonathan and Ryan kind of alluded to, you don't need to know them all. You just have to have an openness and willingness to learn them, and experience with one would be fantastic. The program structure schedule. So I'm sure many of you are wondering, when does this our second intake of the program occur? And so I can confirm that we will be beginning November 1st, so right at the beginning of November of this year, and it's about a 14-month program. So we'll continue on until the end of December of next year, the following year. We'll have 2 residential sessions. I'll get to those in a little bit on the next slide in detail. And we'll have weeknight and weekend classes throughout the program, throughout those 14 months. As I mentioned earlier, based out of Smith, Toronto. So to kind of give you an idea of your schedule for the 14 months, you'd have a class any night from Monday to Thursday for the 14 months, as well as Saturdays or Sundays, usually alternating weekends, but they might vary throughout the year. You might have Saturdays at some point and Sundays at another point. So you would be required to be quite flexible for the program, but it's all outside of work hours, which is great. We also will have some asynchronous classes. So those would be, online classes that you would study self-paced. So not everything will be live and synchronous. So I think that offers some flexibility as well. And the residential sessions I mentioned, I wanted to get into a little bit more here. So we'll have 2 of them for this incoming intake, and those will be right up at the top. We'll have one in November. So we'll all get to meet each other, meet your program teams, and kick off with some MFIT courses. And then we'll get together about halfway through the program again in June in Kingston. So the November one's in Smith, Toronto, and the June one would be at Goods Hall in Kingston. These are unique and a little bit different than, say, your courses throughout the week and weekends, because these are full-time programming. So we're going to be doing courses during the day, team building activities and workshops, and really a great time to network and meet your peers and kind of be able to immerse yourself as a full-time student as you would have been as in your undergraduate. So you'll probably be required to take about 2 weeks of vacation for our residential sessions. And those are the only times we're kind of together in the day for the duration of the 14 months. And I'll just quickly touch on our faculty. So this is just a really small sample of our amazing, outstanding faculty. Here we've highlighted some from our MFIT programming and our MMA programming. And really these are educators in technology, finance, analytics, and AI. They're not only industry specialists, but they're also practitioners who teach from real market experience. So that's where you're going to get that theory with practical application element that we talked about earlier. Our advisory board. So our advisory board is new as the program is new. So we launched our advisory board in November. It's actually 2 slides long with 18 members. So I'll spend a little quick amount of time on each slide. And so we really have fantastic leadership from various different industries. So we're really, really proud of this advisory board, and we're working with them in lots of different ways, whether that be, with Jonathan today attending today's session to have a kind of fireside chat with Ryan, or this evening we are having, another panel event actually just for our students to talk about market structure and GameStop in particular. On tonight's panel, we'll actually have Tracy Stern, who's from the Ontario Securities Commission, and Jeff Berry, who is from RBC Wealth Management Equity Markets. So the advisory board is here to support our students and the program, really making sure that Ryan and I have a finger on the pulse on the program and making sure that we're up to date on current trends, helping us to leverage real case studies and data sets. So a really, really fantastic team of 18 folks here. Finally, our career management framework. I wanted to start with letting you know that our Career Advancement Center was recently ranked #1 in the country by the Financial Times rankings in MBA programs. And our MFIT program, as well as all of our Smith programs, benefit from the same team and framework. So it's a really, really exciting and huge advantage to studying at Smith. And they're based on 3 pillars. I won't spend too much time on this. I think at our next info session, we'll have someone from our Career Advancement Center join us. But just briefly, through the 3 pillars, you'll learn how to do discovery, so self-assessments, career coaching, and online resources. At the very beginning of the program and our opening session, our students will meet the career coaches that will be there for you for the entire duration of the program. They'll help you they'll help you build your kind of resume in this 1-page template that would get put on kind of in a resume book and shopped around to different corporate partners that we have. They'll help you with interviews, your branding. Right now, a lot of branding and networking in a virtual environment is a huge focus. And finally, on how to launch your career. So if you're looking for your next step, whether within your organization or making a change out of your organization or to a completely different industry, they'll help you with that job search, the recruitment, networking with the corporate partners. We have many, many networking events. And they'll even help you with, when it comes to it, offer negotiation and onboarding with the new employer. So they are a fantastic service. Our alumni. So as I've mentioned, this is our first inaugural year of our Masters of Financial Innovation Technology program, but we do have alumni from our Smith Toronto programs, which we've pulled here for you today. So this is really a snippet of what Smith Toronto program average alumni looks like. So they are 34 years of age average, ranging from 20 to 64. They have an average work experience of 6.3 years, 2.5 years of average management experience, and they're about 35% female in the Smith Toronto programs as of about last year. But what I can share with you about our MFIT profile is our current class profile. So we started the year with 19 students in our inaugural cohort. And the average age of students was pretty on par with the rest of the Smith Toronto program, so 33. Average work experience years, was 9. We are about a quarter female, and we hope to improve that for our next cohort and see more female representation in the program. And we had 2 international students. And likely we'll see that increase as well next year as hopefully travel restrictions lift in the fall is the hope. We had a citizenship from many places around the world, and industries represented really kind of all over the board, really mirroring, like I mentioned, our advisory board. So coming from all different industries. And finally, before I introduce Jen, I wanted to just go over the fees. So these are also listed on our website. So the fees for a domestic paying student would be 44,440 Canadian dollars. And for an international student would be 76,705 Canadian dollars. These are program fees, so they definitely do include tuition, but not just tuition. They include your books, materials, your learning materials, your meals and accommodations for residential sessions, and all software licenses, which you'll need plenty. I did just want to mention, excuse me, that our first residential session, which is based out of Smith, Toronto in November, the idea is that you're able to have accommodations nearby. So that wouldn't include kind of room and board, but for our second one in Kingston, we would be. And how the payments work for your fees, it's there's a $2,000 deposit up front to hold your spot in the program. And then it's followed by 3 payment installments over the year. And all this information is on our website as well, but I just wanted to spend a little time going over it. I'll now introduce Jennifer, who I mentioned, who's our MFIT application advisor. And on the next slide, we have her email where you can contact her directly. And I'm just going to take a look at the chat. And Jennifer, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Great, thanks, Kara. I appreciate it. So to start things off, what we typically do is start a preliminary assessment. So what that is just having a review of your professional and your academic background. So to get this started, I just simply need to see a copy of your resume and your transcript. So that'll give me sort of an idea of your profile and whether you qualify for the program. My role is to guide you through the application process and support you in providing ongoing feedback to help present the strongest case to the admissions committee. So, what we, I always suggest, we'll schedule a phone call and have a discussion around, your career goals and how this would fit in with that. And we also work on a rolling admission basis. So what that means is there's no deadlines. So we're always accepting applications. But in saying that, because we are always accepting applications, we encourage you to apply sooner than later because spots do fill very quickly for the November start. So I do encourage you to reach out and we can start a conversation around your application. And to complete your application, the other items that we are typically looking for, which again, I'll walk you through the steps, is such things as a cover letter, a couple of references. These are online references. We understand you're reaching out to busy professionals. So it's about 10 minutes of their time to complete these forms. And then they generate back into your file. Then of course, official transcripts. And once we've been working really closely together and I'm providing feedback along the way and everything looks strong and great to move forward, at that time we discuss an interview with Kara, and that's typically via Zoom, about 30 minutes in length. And then your file goes to the admissions committee for a review. So I hope it doesn't sound lengthy, but because it is not, we can usually pull your application together within a week's time and hopefully have a response within 5 to 10 business days to follow that. So I certainly encourage you to reach out, even if you just have questions simply around your candidacies to the program. My email is in the next slide, so feel free and we can schedule a call at your convenience. All right, thanks. I'll pass it back to Kara.
Thank you, Jen. I'm just looking through the Q&A. So we only have a couple minutes left, but I wanted to leave Jennifer's email here on this slide. So some of our questions are around candidacy for the program, and we can touch on it quickly right now, but absolutely follow up with Jennifer in an email with your information and your questions, and she can assess that for you and really help you put your best foot forward through the application process. One question I'd like to highlight, which I think is an excellent one, is really great experience in finance and, business acumen through CFA and MBA, this applicant. However, no programming skills. And my answer to that and the admissions committee would be, that's absolutely fine. What will happen is if you are successful in going through the process, the admissions committee will likely make a condition that you complete a certificate in 1 or 2 programming languages, just to ensure that you're starting the program on the right foot and on equal footing as some of your peers. And really helping you to be successful in the program. So don't let that deter you from applying. Just know that you might need to do a certificate 1 or 2 before starting the program. Another really great question I'll just answer quickly is what type of funding and scholarships are available for students. So we do have some Dean's Entrance scholarships, and at the time of application, you are assessed for those Dean's Entrance scholarships immediately and automatically. So there's nothing left for you to do to apply for them. I will add that they are limited, and so we only have so many for the year to kind of give out. But hopefully that helps answer your question. Nothing else for you to do to be considered for one. I think we've answered all the questions, and I think it's about 1 minute to 1. So thank you all so much for joining. As Ryan kind of mentioned in the beginning of the session, a recording of this session will be sent out to everyone who attended or registered. And so if you want to hear anything back, just play that. As well, reach out to Jennifer at any time to assess your candidacy and whether this is the right program for you. And thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.